Welcome back, guys. Another episode of GhettoRig podcast. We got a surprise here for you today, but before we get into it, episode 215. Word about our sponsors: UFC Gym St. Petersburg and Largo, and Vitality 1 and 2. Please go check them out. But my name is Jay. If you don't know me already, all the way to my right is Eddie, my co-host, and behind the camera we've got Miggy. But we have a special guest here for you today. It's my buddy John. You should check him out on Instagram and whatnot. But yeah, John, introduce yourself real quickly, name what you do, type of deal, very quickly, and then we'll just dive right into it.
Yeah, for sure. What's up, everyone? My name is Jonathan Yap. I train with Jay at UC Gym Largo. I work a normal day job, but I've also started teaching the morning classes at the UFC gym.
6 o'clock, right? Like 6 a.m.
6 a.m. Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, no gi. Tuesday, Thursday, gi. So come on out, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in the area, in the Largo, Pinellas Park area, come through to the UFC Gym Largo 6 a.m. classes.
Yeah. And you're primarily at the UFC. You're going to stay at UFC Largo, right?
Yeah, it's like 10
Yeah.
minutes away from where I'm at.
Yeah,
so
that's
super
perfect.
convenient.
Yeah.
I'll
So-
bounce back and forth, too.
How did you get in? Because there's like you're married, you have a wife, wife is a doctor. But how did you get into the whole jiu-jitsu? How did that all start? Because you used to wrestle, right, back in the day. Like, where the origin story of Jonathan? Where did that all started?
Well, even before the wrestling, so I started martial arts at like an MMA school in Miami when I was 6 years old, and so they did like a couple days a week is like a rotation schedule where they had jiu-jitsu and then striking, like a lot of taekwondo influence, so those forms stuff like that, and kickboxing and sparring and stuff. So I started that when I was 6, and I did jiu-jitsu maybe once or twice a week with the rotation, and I hated grappling growing up. I hated it. I was terrible at it. I always liked the combinations, the striking, all that. I loved that way more growing up. It wasn't until, well, first I had my first competition. I can't remember. It must have been like 10 or 11, like early double digits, right? Tried some weird takedown, got submitted like immediately, cried off the mat. It was terrible experience. Didn't compete, got into high school. Junior year, I had gotten my black belt at that karate school, and then I wanted to start competing more. I was like, okay, no, I want to start getting back out there. My school had stopped like competing for the most part. They had some falling out with some like old coaches and stuff like that, so we had to stop competing for a while.
The gym drama, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
It
Gym
feels
drama.
like
always that in
there's
martial
always
arts,
something about martial arts, man.
It's
Always
just-
a gym drama.
I think it's just business in general. If you get people together, there's gonna be drama when you involve, like,
Yeah, I guess.
especially like if there's egos involved, which is, like, martial artists can be egotistical. It can control, but can also enable it both ways,
Yeah.
right? So,
And it always comes down to the same thing. We've even talked about this many times on a pod. Like, we even say the same exact thing. It's got to be the ego. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot point anything else to it. They just don't agree with. And it's not even the business aspect of things. Usually it's like, oh, I'm better than you. Don't tell me what to do, type of deal. And it just ends up being a shit show.
right, yeah, and it wasn't like our gym's fault. It was just it was a big falling out, and then we lost a lot of our upper belts, and then that's what kind of just we're just gonna do our own thing. But then I pushed to start, like, I wanted to compete more, and I was like, okay, I like the striking, but I'm like, do I want to get hit in the head?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Not really. Like, all right, I'll start grappling more, and I started competing a little more grappling. Like the Nagas, the local things. At this point, like, New Breed and them hadn't really popped up, so it was Naga or bust. And then
What's that? Can you tell a little more about it? Because not everybody that's watching know what that means, Naga or bust.
So Naga is a North American Grappling Association. It was like, it's probably one of the first and like the biggest, like, casual, not to say casual, but like
Everyday
everyday grappler
everyday
tournaments.
hobbyist.
I remember hearing
Right.
about it even as a kid growing up.
Yeah, that was the one where, like, it was all over. Like, that was the one that really popularized, like, entry, like, just like open entry tournaments for jiu-jitsu.
And it's cool because they
going
give
back
you
in the
like
day.
swords and shit now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I remember that.
Do
even as a
they
kid.
still do swords?
Yeah, bro, they give the swords to the kids.
Yeah. So I have one of those, and it's so cool because the blade is like, it's a carbon steel, so it's like a black sword.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you watch
That's
anime or
cool.
anything like that, but like I
Do you think
I
they
grew
gave you a carbon one because it was cheaper to get the carbon
It
one?
I think it is.
But I bet it just looks cool as shit.
It does. But I grew up watching this anime Bleach, and like, one guy has like a black sword, so I'm like, oh god, I got a sword like Ichigo.
Right.
So it was cool. And then they give out like the belts for the extra
Can you pull up the
editions.
Ichigo sword? Sorry, go ahead.
They give out the belts for the what's it called, for like the expert divisions. So I got one of those when I was a teenager also.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that even as a kid, like Naga, and I didn't even know about jujitsu when I had.
Can you pull up
heard
Naga
about
Black
Naga.
Sword? Yeah. So and then you were doing jujitsu. So how did that went into the wrestling? Because you did a little bit of wrestling too, like competitively, right?
Yeah, so that was when I started competing more in jiu-jitsu like my freshman sophomore year, and then I thought like, okay, well, I wanted to get more into my
Freshman and sophomore
dang,
year of
I can
high
sell
school.
these things.
Yeah. $70.
I
$10,
decided,
baby.
yeah. So like my first series, I'm getting more into jiu-jitsu, like training more of that. But then I wanted to get better at takedowns. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go out and start wrestling. So I started my junior year, which is super late. Like I got into it, and I was like, man, I wish I would have started back in middle school. My middle school had a program that I just never started out, but it's all part of the journey or whatever. And then so I wrestled my junior senior year. Didn't go like far by any means. We had a tough district where we were at in Miami. We had South Dade in our district. They win states like almost every year. And they have like multiple state champs like every year out of their high school. But either way, I wasn't that great either which way. And then I went to UF, so I graduated high school, go to University of Florida, and then they had a club team there. So there's no NCAA teams in Florida at all. There are a couple of NAIA, which is like a lower division of like college competitive sports, and they're on like I think they're 2-year colleges. But they had a club team, which is pretty much just for fun, right? There's no scholarship, there's no money or anything like that. It's just for fun. And so I started doing that, and so I wrestled there I didn't compete my freshman year. I didn't compete, and then my junior through my senior year, I competed there through college. Made to nationals 2 years. The first time I went to nationals was my junior year, and this is after my sophomore year. I was still cutting to 125.
Jesus.
So I wrestled 126 in high school.
You were at what, 155?
I walked around like back then I was like 140. I was even skinnier, if you can believe it. I was like 140, like walking around, and I cut to 126 in high school.
How tall are you?
Like 5'8".
Yeah, that is skinny.
That's a lot of cut.
There's a lot of cut.
Yeah.
And then it's rough because like it's not like a day before weigh-in like an MMA. It's like you got like an hour or two.
Bro,
Yeah,
you cut
weigh in
10%
right
of your body weight. That's nuts.
It was nuts.
Think
it
about
was
it.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, 26, and then I go to college, and for some reason I think that I'll go 125, and that year was miserable, absolutely miserable. But the next year I went to 133 after instead, and that was a lot better. It's still tough, but I think at that point in college I was walking around like 150, like just under 150, and cutting to 133. But I was cutting from like 145, 150ish to 125 like throughout the season. I would walk around lighter because I would be in more like diet shape like throughout the season time, and it helps that in college it's more like tournaments like on the weekends, not like random dual meets.
But you
like,
basically have a tournament damn near every weekend, right?
Not every weekend. It's club, so it's not like funded like that crazy. So it's more like once or twice a month, and then there's like the national. So there's only like probably like 8 or 9 meets, and even then like you didn't have to go to all of them per se if you were just if you had exam study for or something like that. You didn't have to go to every single one to make the roster, because you also, the good thing about like the casual friendly part about the club was that you could enter 2 people for like your conferences to qualify for nationals. So you can it isn't as like competitive to like get a lineup spot. Like you can be like the second guy and still get a chance to go. And I was always the second guy. I was never the best guy on the team either. I was always the second guy at the weight class going up for the spot. So the junior year, I go to 133. I separate my shoulder. It was in a match, and the guy I was starting on.
Did the cartilages snap basically?
Yeah, the AC.
The AC.
Yeah, it was like a grade 2 or whatever. So it just sprained it. It didn't like fully tear, and so I got slammed on my shoulder, and then. It was funny that same day I had a date with my wife before we were just kind of starting to date. I had a date with her that night to watch I think it was McGregor Aldo. That was the night of McGregor Aldo. So we went out to watch that fight. I was like, well, I'm not gonna let it ruin the rest of my night.
Yeah.
But I just gone to the ER because my aunt, I had an aunt in Gainesville at the time. She's like, oh my god, we gotta go to the ER because I was like iced up and everything. We gotta get checked out. the ER doctor's like, yeah, like you might need surgery after the X-ray. And I'm like, oh my god. So oh my god, I might need surgery on my shoulders. I'm like in shock. I couldn't.
Stressing out.
I had to get my friend to wash my other arm because I couldn't move this arm, right? So I could wash my arm that was injured, but I couldn't use my other arm to wash this one. So I had to, hey, can you wash my left arm?
And
for
you
me?
gotta go on a date. That's so funny.
They had to drop me off. I couldn't drive, obviously.
Yeah. Your girl's like, who's this broke? You coming out here? No car. He can't lift his arms.
Well, I was texting her about. I was like, oh, I hurt my shoulder a little bit, but I think I'm all right because I'm still adrenaline up. And then I get to. I'm getting back to Gainesville because it was in Tampa, so we were driving back. I'm like, oh, we're heading back now. Like, oh, I'm going to the ER. My aunt wants to take the ER. She's like freaking out. Like, oh, we're still going out. I was like, yeah, we're still going out. And then
just for the fight to be 13 seconds,
know,
anyways.
Right?
That's what was. She's like, oh shit, he fucked his shoulder up and he came on with it. I think I'll be okay with him, right? Is that what it was?
I still won the match too.
Yeah,
I still won the match.
Oh really?
yeah. I won the match. I didn't feel it till after. Like I was still like fine like throughout the match. It wasn't until after I was like, oh, my shoulder hurts.
Yeah.
You can kind of see it too. Like it still has like it's tightened up a little bit, but like you could really tell. My roommate used to call it my shoulder cannon because it was so like pronounced. It was like a little cannon mount they used to call it.
Mike Ano has that.
Yeah, it's
like
a
lot of fighters.
It's a super common injury.
Yeah,
you get mat return, you get slammed. After that, I stopped just standing up from bottom. I started like to work different games, so definitely learned to not get up because I was always so like skinny that people just wrap me up and just lift me and bomb me. So I'm like, okay, I need to work on getting to a better position from down before I start getting back up to my feet. So junior year, that's like January, or that's like December. Yeah, that's in like December, and conferences are around like February. So the next like the Monday right after, I get in with the ortho at UF, and he gets the X-rays from the ER, and he's like, oh, it's like yeah, you'll be fine. Like you'll just do some exercises and PT, and then you'll be back like doing PT like in a month. After a month, you'll be like full mobile, and then you just rehab it. I'm like, at this point now it's a few days later, right? So now it's really set in.
Yeah,
it's really set in. It hurts to move like this far forward. Like any deviation from like just flat hurts like hell.
Did they have you in a sling or something?
Yeah, I had a sling and everything. And I'm like,
and that's your right arm. And
yeah,
you're right-handed.
right
so how did you do with college and everything for those couple of months? It had to be a nightmare.
In my exams, I literally went to my exams. I probably could have asked for like extensions or whatever, but then I had to just delay my exams, and then I'm doing my classes in the spring and my exams from the fall. I was getting over with. Yeah. So I'd walk into the exam like in my sling. Everyone's like, oh my god, what happened? I sit down. I'd use my left arm to like rotate my hand, place it on the desk, and then just write, and then I'm moving my papers around with this hand.
Yeah.
I'm just moving around like this.
That's some dedication. I would have taken off 3 weeks.
Because it was the end of the semester, so all I had were exams. So I didn't want to like bother trying to like, just have double work in the next semester.
Yeah, I get it, dude. Especially in like university, college level, it's a lot of work. Especially if you're doing like full-time university. Oof.
Yeah,
I mean, I probably would have did the same thing. I can't write with my left hand for shit. I can't do anything with my left hand. I mean,
yeah, no.
Yeah, the hand, my wrist was fine, so like I could move my wrist and write everything. I just couldn't move anything with that. I was passing everything around with my left hand.
Yeah.
But then, so I'm like, Doc, are you sure? I'm like, are you like, do you want to see it? Like, it's pretty like separated, and it hurts to move a lot. And he had some residents with him. It's like, yeah, sure, you can show them if you want. Like, super casual about it. I'm like, this guy's serious? And so I show the residents I'm like the carnival show, like, oh, look at his shoulder, like, and they're looking at my
like a
busted shoulder.
Experiment.
It's a learning experience. I was like, yeah, that'll help the residents out. That's fine. He's like, yeah, like just keep doing these little motions where he just had me like swing my arm like back and forth as much as I can, and like little by little we get more like these little range of motion things. So I go home for the winter break. By the time I get back from winter breaks, like 2-3 weeks, I'm like pretty much full range of motion, like swinging it around like full range of motion, just like a little bit of pain here and there, and then I'm back and doing PT at the UF like a physical therapist, and then sure enough, like I actually came back able to compete for conferences, and was able to make it to nationals that year.
So the ER was completely wrong. No surgery needed.
Yeah, no surgery. Nothing.
So how did the date go with the wife? And all fucked up.
Yeah, it went well. Yeah. We're still here, aren't we?
Yeah.
That was like 10 years ago. like
But
10
but,
years
but there's
ago.
like a story between like how you met your wife, right? Like there is a crazy story. Like usually those things don't happen. Like the way you met her with like the judo and everything.
Yeah. So she did judo at UF. So we were sharing the same practice room, but then on the schedule, they had a slot on Friday at 5 o'clock, and I knew the guy that started the club up. He's come to the jiu-jitsu club for every so often, and we did like a shared practice on the Fridays where one week would be judo teaching and one week would be jiu-jitsu teaching. And so she came into one class one day. First time I see her, like, oh, you're here for jiu-jitsu? It's like, oh yeah, I'm here for the judo club. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So that's how we met originally, and then just started talking more. Eventually asked her out, and then
But it's crazy because usually like girls are not big into that. Like they're not big into judo, any type of grappling. So that was like to me that was like, oh shit, you met your wife and where? You know what I mean? Because that usually doesn't happen. It's very rare for girls to do anything that has to do with grappling. Like I'll see them doing kickboxing and stuff like that, but never grappling. I don't know. So that was kind of cool, story to hear.
right. I mean, and we had a good amount of we had always had like two wrestlers that were girls also on the team because they had girl divisions as well, and then in jiu-jitsu one of them did both, or they both did both, and we had other people come in and out. In college especially, if you think like the churning of like new people coming in and out is like bad
Insane,
in like regular like jiu-jitsu gyms, it's twice as bad in college. Because it's like a lot of people that come in, like, oh, try different clubs and everything, and they'll come in.
Are these clubs free for them to try? Oh, okay,
Mhm.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we would fund it. Like we wouldn't do much funding because it's as long as you're affiliated with the school, you don't need to pay for like mat space or anything. You just got to work with the schedule, like get on the schedule, and certain clubs get preference if they're doing more things or if they're like a sport club. We weren't a sport club. We were just like a organization or whatever. So it wasn't like a paid.
You ever
to
talk
get
to
in
those
over.
people? You ever talk to them, like whether it's social media or not, or just kind of it was that thing, and then just there was so much turnover that you didn't really have time to like really make any connections there?
No, we had some because there was like a core group, but then you always have those people that would come in and that would come in for like a little bit and then never see them again. Same thing as regular gyms, but you just get a lot more of it with college.
Yeah. Well, what
college
would you say
students.
in an average mat? How many people would be on average on a mat?
Beginning of the semester, you could get like 15, 20 people in the beginning of the semester.
15, 20?
And then when it stabilized, it would get down to like a good solid like core group of 10.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how the girls do in those classes? Pretty good?
Yeah, they did really good. One of them, I remember she had experience coming in. She had trained at a school in South Florida, and she came up. She was already a blue belt. And then I remember this is probably like one of my favorite, because I was the club president of the club of jiu-jitsu, so I would like kind of coach while I was there, and then just like do all the paperwork stuff too, just to keep the club running. And we went down, and it was only one person in her bracket, so it was a best 2 out of 3. It was a Naga also.
Yeah, Naga, yeah.
So it was
Round robin type of deal?
Yeah, it was a best 2 out of 3, and so she loses the first match, and then we get her back in the headspace, like hype her back up, and she goes back and wins the second and third match to win first, and that was like one of my favorite experiences, like coaching with that one, and a bunch of other ones. Like honestly, I think the girls competed more than the guys. And
dude, girls are when they're going against each other, girls are brutal, man. They'll doesn't matter whether it's practice or not. And in the beginning, that's what my experience was. In the beginning, they'll be like, and then when they get used to each other, they just start fucking. Even during practice, they're just going and going and going and going. Like it's not like the dudes, you know what I mean? That's I don't know. Did you notice anything like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think part of it is it's also like the ones that are very competitive about it. The ones that are competitive are that like extra aggressive, just because I think they probably have to be just because to like survive at that like pace with like a bunch of guys in the room. Like you kind of like they feel a little like out of place in at times, right? Jiu-jitsu can be kind of more like guy dominated.
Yeah.
So to kind of like really put it out there, they have to like amp it up on their side, and they just oh.
Dinner. So the girls they were a little more competitive, and that's pretty cool. Like, have you kept up with them? Did they continue doing it after college, or it was just kind of like, well, they were in college and then that was that?
Yeah, so the blue belt got her purple belt. So she's still training. I know one of them has gotten her blue belt. She's in somewhere in the Midwest now. I can't remember where. And then the other one that had wrestled, she went to nationals and she placed in nationals in wrestling. She unfortunately had a really bad injury in one of the Naga tournaments. Just a girl jumped guard and absolutely blew out her knee. It was that's so the best 2 out of 3 ones was like my high point. That one was my absolute low point. That was a rough experience. Like seeing that happen, and seeing her like have to deal with
it's not
that.
your fault, but like, how do you sleep with it?
Right. But like, so she doesn't like compete more in grappling, but she's like, she rehabbed everything and she's doing like powerlifting and everything. So she's she's healthy and everything, but she's not grappling anymore.
I see. So then college was over, and then what happened there after that? Did you go directly to jiu-jitsu, or you kind of stuck around with wrestling, or just naturally you just kind of switched to jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. So I mean, so I was doing the club, so I was doing jiu-jitsu a little bit here and there, like while I was still in the doing like competing wrestling and focusing on it. And then I finished wrestling, but then I got my master's, so I was still there for a little bit. So I would, at that point, I shifted to jiu-jitsu a little bit more, as well. I was still like practicing wrestling like while I was there with the club and stuff, but I was shifting to focusing like on jiu-jitsu and competing in jiu-jitsu. Did a few tournaments, like some like sub-only cash tournaments when I was a blue belt in Jacksonville and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's after I finished competing in wrestling in college, and then the last like year and a half of my master's, that's when I shifted into like focusing on jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and then it's been jiu-jitsu since then.
Yeah.
And then you ended up coming down to this area, and this was the first gym you went to, right? Because I know you showed up you showed up in Pinellas Park on a mat.
Right. Yeah. Well, because Corey told me about it. Well. Yeah. That was after college. We moved to West Palm because I was working. I graduated and I got a job down there.
Oh, by the way, don't forget that. So, you graduated. What did you graduate with? What's your profession and what did you graduate college from?
So my degree is in a bachelor's and a master's in industrial and systems engineering.
Chris said that he wants to be just like you when he grows up.
And then
industrial
engineering. So it's like process engineering for the most part now. So it's started out like in like factories and industrial like factories trying to optimize the assembly lines. They make things faster and run more efficiently.
So you're writing code now.
Yeah, because it's kind of branched out to like basically process management. Mm-hmm. So you can improve process anywhere, like any company. It's big in the medical industry now too, trying to optimize like hospitals and like bring down costs. Mm-hmm. But then I ended up interning in IT for an energy company in South Florida, and so that's where I kind of shifted more into like coding and stuff like that. So I got my internships and came back there. So I honestly, other than like some concepts from my major, most of it was just like the few classes that were programming based, which weren't as many like as if you were like actually a computer engineer. Yeah. But the ones that I did, I like focused in on those hard. I was a TA for them for 3-4 years while I was in college. It was like my college job, and so that's what I did, like where I focused my like experience, actual like hands-on experience in, and so that's where I landed back as a full-time employee doing like a program where you bounced around different teams in IT. Landed up in like a more data-focused team, and so that's where I focused my like work. So it's more data engineering. And now the big thing is like all AI stuff, right? So data preparation is like the big thing that you need to have good data to have good.
That's
AI.
what I wanted to talk about, especially with the age of AI, right? Like how's that impacted your job? Because I mean, you kind of did the job before AI was a thing, and now AI is a thing. So how was that transition?
I mean, so a lot of it is. So like corporate wise, it's a lot of like push to get like chatbots just to get answers on things faster. Like that's like the main use case that everyone's like ChatGPT stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's trying to get all their massive documents that they have in a folder somewhere, processed, put into a chatbot that's contained to their company, so it's not like being used to.
It's a non-open source, yeah.
Right. So that it's all like easy for people to, instead of having to go through and like search through papers or search through scroll down a file, you just ask the chatbot, hey, What do I do for this repair on this machine? It's like, oh, like, what's the error code? Like, oh, the error code's this. Like, okay, I do this. So that's it's also like one of the most like easier bang for your bucks, because like chatbot, like large language models have gotten pretty good, like with ChatGPT and all the other ones. So it's like also like very low hanging fruit to get some of those things processed, because a lot of companies are just basically buying out the like licensing to use ChatGPT or other models like from the owners of those models, and then from there they're just like plugging it into their like their software, making their own front end application for it, and then feeding it the data for their documents, and then that's like their like companies, everyone's trying to build that for their internal stuff. So it's helpful for all that. And even my wife was telling me for like the medical one, same thing. There's like a new application that they're using where they can ask a question about something like symptoms or whatever, and it'll search documents for them and give them an answer. If it's like a more niche thing that they aren't as familiar with, you can just search things that way. Mm-hmm. It's like a very enhanced Google.
Yeah, it's a very like specific thing to the business that you're working in. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then it doesn't have all the bloatware.
Dude, in the medical, like it doesn't have the medical system. That's insane, because if you can create a database that has all of these peer-reviewed journals about all these different issues, it's just much quicker to get a most correct answer in a timely manner.
Yeah, absolutely. And it still has like challenges of having to like not all data is good data, which is why like it's so important to have like process like to vet out the information that you're feeding AI in general. So that's why like my focus has been on that data side. And then since then I was still with that company for 5 years. We had moved from West Palm to Miami because she did medical school down there as well. And then when she got her rotations, her spot was in a hospital down in Miami, so we moved down there to for those 2 years. And then after that, when she graduated, got to her residency, that's when that's what brought us to Largo in this last June.
And she's in Morton Plan? Is that where she is? Where's she doing her residency?
In Largo.
In Largo yeah. Hospital. That's pretty cool. Now, what do you see? Like, what's your projection in the next 5-10 years? When do you think that AI is gonna really kind of take over? Like, at least do.
Before we go there, I have a question. Has there ever been a time where you go and look and you give it the error code and then it spits out the result, but you're like, this didn't work, and then you have to like, I don't know, maybe find a different solution and then feed it to the system to update it?
Yeah, I mean that's like the what do they call it? I never been like as big on like all the terms for like the data science side, but they call it like supervised learning, where you kind of feed it responses and you say like this is right, this is wrong, and then from there it knows. Then it'll learn. That's pretty cool. What's like the proper answer to it.
You can override that on demand so you can get the proper information. That's cool.
Right. You feed it more data so it knows what's right and what's wrong. So then it takes that into account the next time it gets something similar. Right.
Yeah, and because the company already owns it, it's like you don't have to go to somebody else to do it. You can just do it on your own.
I remember when AI was coming around, like maybe like a year and a half ago too, and it was becoming like ChatGPT was blowing up hard, and that a lot of companies were hiring people to do exactly that, to help AIs learn. Basically, I remember hearing somebody that I knew doing exactly that, getting paid from home, working just literally, basically, I guess cross-referencing information for an AI for certain companies to make sure, exactly like you were saying, supervised learning.
Yeah, there's a lot of like data scientists that was the big thing, like AI ML engineers.
Yeah,
I think now it's like come back a little bit where people are focusing on like the step before, where you gotta get your data good first before you worry about the AI on top of it, because you put in bad data, you're getting bad results anyways.
And so here's the thing, like what's the best way to go about it? Because I mean, there's so much data out there, right? Like you can go to ChatGPT, ask it, but if you ask bad data, it's gonna spit out bad answer. And then there was an article we read that 10% of the time it gives you actually bad data. Even ChatGPT, which is like the most.
Just been pissing me off lately at work. It's just giving me the same goddamn answer for everything. And I tell it, like, I start new threads, tell it to do it differently, and it formats everything exactly the same over and over and over and over. It's pissing me off lately.
Yeah. So that was the thing, when I was talking to my friends who've been using ChatGPT, and they're saying like the actual input of your questions, the way you put the questions together is like more important than the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, it's called prompt engineering. how you prompt it is super important. Like you have to. There's an article about it recently from I can't remember who it was, like one of the pioneers of like the LLMs. It was he was talking about like the way you structure your query has to be like a little bit of like the initial question, put some context, give an example of how you want the answer to come back. Like if you want like a bulleted list, or if you want like a table or something like that, you tell it how you want to get the answer, and then send it off or something like that. It was like some combination, like some like sections of like how, like the best way to prompt the.
Because I've tried to do that.
AI.
Being in finance, I've tried to do that. I fed it this document. It was like 100 pages long. I fed the document. I was like, digest it down. I want to know exactly what this is. It gave me some answer. I was like, all right, well, this is not good enough. Like, you're not giving me shit. So slowly asking him questions. But then when I would put everything together in one question, it would give me some bullshit answer. Like, I found like one tiny question at a time used to.
I also found that like sometimes I have to go so deeply into prompting it. I feel like I would have done less work just doing it myself, whatever I was asking from the beginning.
I was just about to say that.
So like the whole thing of like giving it examples, I get that's definitely the best way to do it. But like for my job, right, marketing, I'm gonna, for example, do, I don't know, make a caption or description for some kind of post or whatever it is on YouTube, social, whatever. I can give it examples, but at that point I would have just wrote it myself. You know what I mean? Like if I'm trying to just tell it, oh, give me a caption for this business about this item. Okay, that's quick and easy, and it can format it nice and professional, and I can tell it to tweak certain things. But when it starts spitting out bullshit sometimes, you just gotta like give it an example. At that point, I'm just gonna write it myself.
But at the same time, you also want it to just think of it on its own. If you think about it logically.
I don't know if it's...
That's not what it's designed for. It's not designed to work on its own. It needs prompts.
Right. It needs the data underlying, and it needs the prompts to know like what to search for, because it's
just gonna give you a very basic answer if you just ask it the same thing every time.
It's all in the way that the data is like laid out underneath, because when you give it a big document, it's not just like one big file that it like reads through. It like chunks it up into like small pieces and then makes the connections, and then from there, from the prompt, it'll find the connections like based off of your question. It'll find things that are similar to what you're asking, and then from there build out the response from there. This is a very rudimentary explanation of it, but that's why like going through larger documents can be harder, because when it gets so wide, it's hard for it to focus in on like the exact pieces that it needs. And
so it's confused at that point a little bit.
Right, and then that's where you'll get those questions that those answers that make no sense. That's called a hallucination. So that happens a lot sometimes too. So you have to kind of like look out for that, especially when you're doing it for like larger scale, like enterprise level like applications.
So ChatGPT needs to stop hitting up the shroom dealer. No more hallucinations. I mean, like this. I know what you're talking about. Sometimes it just gives you like the craziest thing. I use it sometimes. Like I'll put videos into it, and if it's a longer video, and it ignores my prompt basically. Like it just gives me whatever answer it wants on something completely different.
You got a fan? They love your haircut.
Oh, you like it? Yeah, I just got a haircut today. Appreciate it. Gotta look sexy for the trip.
So what do you think? How many years ahead of us until? Because I've been reading this book. It's called Singularity is Near, and it talks about basically how eventually humans gonna become bionic, right? The way science is moving, and every year we've been able to double the amount of processing that we can do, and then create being able to double the technology, right? Like if you follow that notion, how long do you think it's gonna take for AI to be? Because see, I think what's happening. Let me track back before I ask a question. I think what's happening when I ask a question to ChatGPT or whatever, I want it to almost guess what I'm thinking about without me giving him too much. That kind of guess what I'm thinking about, but it can't. You know what I mean? He can't guess from like 2-3 words what I'm trying to get.
You sound like a female. I gave him hints.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I think, I don't know if it's my delusion. Like, because these AIs been hyped up so much that I'm like thinking that they're these perfect things, but they're really not. They're like very like basic. It's almost like a 4-year-old child that's instant access to all the information you need, but you have to like kind of digest it for it a little bit for it to like give you the correct answer. So what do you think is gonna, coming off of that, how long do you think it's gonna take until like it's actually there?
Right. I mean, it's always gonna be like an ongoing like process of improvement. As far as like when it'll be like full on replacing, that's hard to say because like I'm a little more optimistic on it, I guess. Where like humanity has always had these technology revolutions where everyone like worries about like not having like jobs anymore and everything, and there is that cycle of creative destruction, right? Where one task becomes automated in a certain way, like the like printing press and like things like that, where the industrial revolution, like farming and stuff, right? So it allows people to just direct their time to other things, right? Um, so people will just kind of leverage it to be more.
I think Neil
like,
deGrasse Tyson
more
talks
productive,
about
more
that.
creative. Yeah, everyone's always in one camp. Like there's like there's a camp of
That's
people
an interesting
people
way of
figure it
thinking
out.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson says there's always going to be plenty of shit to do. Even if we automate stuff, then you're going to need people that are going to watch over the automation, right? So like first, there are people that are going to try to automate it, and then the ones that are overseeing it. So like your engineers, when they're like kind of like a car, right? Like at first you had engineers that engineer the car. Now you have just the mechanics that fixing it. They're not engineers. You know what I mean? So that's I see what you're saying. It makes sense.
Right. And like, if you think about like if you look at your job, like are you ever like just finishing enough work? Like do you have like just enough work like waiting for you like for your job? Like no, there's a bunch of other things that everyone has on their wish list of things to do, but they just doesn't happen, right? Because there's just other things. There's things that are prioritized, right?
Yeah.
So as you get more productive, then you can do more things in the same or less time. So that's where I think a lot of that will go. Certain skills and tasks there will be less jobs in them per se, just because you won't need as many people doing that thing. But then that's where you have that period of transition where people will have to keep upskilling and learning to work with it in the new available like jobs. That's why it was funny because I think when before ChatGPT came up, but AI was still like a big thing and talking about like automation, the big thing people were talking about back then were blue collar jobs like automated truck drivers, automated like cleaning, like stuff like that, right? Like drones, right? But then even like those things are like ways, like even like automated driving, that's still not scaled out the same way that like language models are, where everyone's like trying to use them and actually rolling things out with them, like companies all over.
Yeah.
So like there was that big it went viral that hashtag learn to code, kind of like talking down to blue collar people, like like learn to code, like figure it out because your job's
do you think that's
I was thinking about it because I worked in construction for 6 years, so I want to see like a Tesla robot install a window. You know what I mean? That's when I see like, okay, then we're gonna start to be kind of like worried,
right?
You know,
that big. I think there's a big market, and you know how we talked about how there's people that are going to these companies to create these programs just for those companies. Well, the same I think is gonna apply to just simple tasks or simple things. We can create devices using AI models that will basically replace our everyday.
So that's where I was gonna go. Is like maybe they won't replace the whole blue collar, but it's gonna replace a lot of them as it starts to go on. Because, like you said, they're gonna be at a certain level where they're not fully there yet to do it on their own. But a GC is gonna go and say, well, they can do this job, this job, this job, and I only need to hire maybe 5 guys to oversee 40 robots to do the job, and then that will replace a lot of those blue collar workers.
I think it's the next level up to just the knowledge that humans have, and
like you can't an AI, for example, you tell one of us to go and research something specific, a very specific question, you give us the basic prompt for it, and it's gonna take us probably 100 times longer to find the research, but it's going to be more consistent, stable research, if you ask me. I mean, because a lot of the hallucinations happen so easily with ChatGPT and AIs now, it's not there yet. I think the human mind, the whole thing is time, though, right? Like we still take so long to do that research versus the AI is
we
this.
had regular standard code, and we made the most use that we could. We built websites, we built all these things. Now we have AI that's going to be able to level that up again.
Right.
Like, what can we do with AI? What
so
can we
that is the question every day.
Since we're talking about data, right? Your company had to invest into extra data because you're feeding a ton of information. This information has to be stored somewhere and easily accessible very fast, right? Do you know if your company had to go out of the way and just get a data center and more space for that, or?
So actually, like in-person data center, no. Almost every like large enterprise is getting rid of their like owned data centers, or scaling them down and going to
Like
cloud.
cloud.
So because with cloud you're able to,
So it's Amazon, Cisco, and all of those guys usually.
yeah, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are like the main big three. Because with those things, it's almost like a
Ecosystem.
I call it outsourcing your servers, because you're just renting servers from them in a way. But because
Which is
of that,
probably cheaper because you don't have to worry about the maintenance. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
it can be a lot of times the companies get in trouble with it when they go with it in the same mindset of like when they own the server. Because back then, but not people still do it now. But when you own the servers, it's like you pay once and it's yours, so you can do whatever you want. Like you get the amount you need to handle your maximum capacity, and then you just have it there, right? So you just do whatever you want on it. You need to worry about like watching how much usage, so long as it's not like going over your maximum, right? With cloud, the tagline was always like pay for what you use, but it's pay for what you pay for what you're saying you're going to use. So if you provision for your maximum workload in the cloud, you're paying for that maximum level. But if you aren't using it, then you're wasting that extra capacity, right? So you can, with cloud, you have to build things differently to take advantage of like the scalability of going up and down and ramping up, ramping down. And with that, that's how you can save money. But that also then takes time and an investment of reworking your things before you push it into the cloud. But a lot of companies will just kind of like lift and shift. They'll just like move things up to the cloud but not like re-architect it, and then it end up costing them like about the same or more if you don't like adjust your development style for cloud.
So like, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, right? Like Palantir. Have you heard anything about it? Because these guys are like, they're the software end of things. You have the NVIDIA, who's the hardware things, and Palantir is the software things. Have you heard anything about them? People talking about it? Because they're the AI super house, right? Like the powerhouse when it comes to things. Have you heard much about it?
I've heard of them like recently. I've heard of them. I haven't seen much on like what they do. So I know they do a lot of like government contract work.
They do, yeah. And I think that government contracting came, I think, through J.D. Vance, the prime minister, the vice president. He had the connections from his school, and Vivek and him were friends, and through their friends, that's how Palantir ended up getting the contract. And I think 46% of their revenue comes from the United States government.
Yeah, I there are plenty of software like as a service companies that are popping up all over and like using AI now to help, whether it's automating their Salesforce, where you're automating how you manage your customer relationships and stuff like that. So there's plenty of like almost every software as a service company has like integrating AI in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, Palantir, I've heard about them, like they're a big player in it, but I haven't like read up as much on like what they're like doing specifically. Yeah. I just know a lot of like government contracts and like getting AI, making it easier for whatever they're doing on that side.
Yeah, because we're all heard stock market has been getting hammered for the past couple of days.
Yeah,
and it seems that Palantir is getting hammered, but they're not getting hammered as much.
You know who's also not getting hammered? Warren Buffett.
Yeah, because he fucking sold a bunch of shit and put it all in cash. Self-fulfilling prophecy, right? I guess.
And now he's just going to buy when it's low. Smart man.
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing it for a better part of 80 years now.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Like it was flying high like a little while ago.
Yeah.
But there was always like the uncertainty, and then now that the uncertainty is a little more like in the face of the investors, now it's just like triggering like a cascade.
Yeah, it's a snowball effect. You know what I mean? It's what happens is somebody pulls, and they're like, people start pulling, and market goes down because they pulled, and everybody else is like freaking out and pulling again.
Yeah.
I always had this saying, like, when you jump in an Uber, and whatever your Uber driver is talking about, if it has to do with economy or investing, do the complete opposite. You know what I mean? Just because that's too late. When your Uber driver is talking about Bitcoin, it's too late. Don't buy it. When your Uber driver is talking about, oh, these coins are shit, blah, 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 just sell them out, that's the time to buy it. Because, the Uber drivers and grandmas usually get the news last. You know what I mean?
That's a new one, the Uber driver index.
Yeah, the Uber driver index. Yeah, right. the Uber driver index. There could be a thing in investment, you know. Like,
You just call up an Uber just to find out.
Just,
What
just,
it's like.
just
Hey,
chat
bro,
him
like,
up.
listen, I don't really need the ride. I'm gonna pay you your fee. What do you think about this and that? All right, cool, thanks, buddy. Back onto your way. You know what I
He
mean?
gives you like
Right.
really thoughtful thoughts, and you're just doing the complete opposite.
Yeah.
He's saying.
Yeah, they're doing the complete opposite, you know. But yeah, so okay, so let's switch it up a little bit, right? Let's go back to jiu-jitsu. So it was
Did
the
we take a
first.
shot? Do you guys take your shot?
No, we didn't.
No.
Well, we
How
can't.
about
We
do
can.
that
That's dinner,
instead
right?
of just letting it sit there, man.
It's
It's
tequila.
already
It's pretty
aged.
good. Yeah, it's
tequila.
aged.
It's extra aged now.
Yeah, it's pretty good tequila
Cheers.
actually. Cheers, boys. It's not rough or anything like that.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's called suavecito.
Miggy's temperature just went up 5 degrees.
By the way,
No, it didn't. Look at my hairs, dude. They're standing.
so by the way, Eddie is from Dominican Republic, so he's like full-blooded Hispanic. Miggy is from Cuba. He came here when he was 15.
You can call us beaners. It's alright.
Yeah, my sister-in-law.
That's the wrong one though. Isn't that from Mexican?
They're all beans.
We
There's just
all
different
we all
types.
eat hella beans. Every single one of us.
My sister-in-law is his sister, so everyone around me is all Hispanic, right? And your wife is Puerto Rican.
Yeah, Puerto Rican,
Right?
Cuban.
So, and Puerto Rican ladies are known for being like spitfire, fiery, like, and very like in your face. How did you?
I haven't seen his phone ring, so I think he's good. I don't think
Well,
he
the
got
wife
that
is
one
working,
on
bro.
that
She's
one.
busy out there tending patients, you know. So, did that ever really happen to you? Like, did you have to like overcome that hurdle, or it was just pretty like smooth sailing?
I mean, you always have like your arguments, just like any other couple, but like she's never been like unreasonable at all. She's
Yeah.
very, very reasonable. But she is like the you know, that
She's the
joke-
anomaly out of all the Hispanic women.
No,
I
she's
think the
great.
question Jay was trying to ask is, has she ever pulled out a knife in the middle of an argument?
No, never.
This pulls out the switch.
Oh,
blades.
man.
What did you say?
No, it would be a chancleta. It would be a flip flop.
No, I never had any issues like that.
So I know we took a side segue on this one, but what I wanted to go into, like the competition. This was your first competition down in Tampa area, right? Which, arguably, I think you won 2 fucking gold medals. That's what I think, and it's my opinion, and nobody can
Oh.
fucking take that shit away from me. You know what I mean? You did probably the most competing, right? Like you had 8 matches, 4 in gi and 4 in no gi.
Yeah, I think Ryan had more scheduled, but I think he got hurt before his last no-gi ones. He had a ton of matches.
Yeah,
For your first tournament, that's rough.
yeah. He had
That's a
6
lot.
matches on each.
That's a lot of matches for like your first time, all like the nerves and the adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
I think after his first match, he came to me like, I can't feel my forearms, because like you know like your
You
first
grip into like
your first
Hail
term is like
Mary,
you're just like squeezing because you're just so tense, like you just don't
Yeah.
know how to control like the squeeze, and your forearms are just blown
blow.
up.
Yeah. Because during competition, it came out, I was like, what needs to be my, like my forearms? Like, so I was sitting there and like doing this the entire time in between the matches to release some of that pressure so you
Yeah.
can get back on the mat.
And even then, that's after years of competing. It still happens. Like,
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's,
There's nothing you
it's,
can
it's
do.
hard to get used to that.
Bro, even in practice, like I'll be rolling with somebody and then I'll have a grip on a gi and then I'll look at my fingers and they're still white. The blood hasn't come back yet. You know what I mean? I had to like bend my fingers backwards on myself with the other hand. But that happens. So
Just let it
but-
go, bro. Just
Uh-huh.
let it go.
Yeah,
just,
just let it
just
go.
let it go. It's
Yeah.
not worth it.
Yeah.
Especially in training, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Gi grips is crazy.
So yeah, by the way, Jonathan hates fucking gi. Like he does not like. I mean, he
Welcome
not
to the
not hate,
club.
but he likes it, but not that much. He
Yeah,
likes the no gi better.
I love no-gi better because my game is very like speed and pressure, like back and forth. So the gi
Gi
takes
slows
away
it
takes
down.
away the
Yeah.
speed aspect that I take advantage of a lot. So
A lot of speed humps.
So how was the first competition down here? What did you think of it?
yeah, the graphic
As far as
industry
the talent.
it was really good. They were all really tough. Like the way you were saying how you think I won 2. I beat the guy that took first in gi, but because it was a round robin, they had like a point, like a criterion of like the scoring basically. So like the first criteria is like your record, right? Like if you win all your matches, then you just win. It doesn't matter if you win everything by points and then other guys submitted people, you won all the matches, so you win. If you tie your record, then that's when they go to like the points where you get more. I think you get like 10 for a submission, 5 for a win by points, and 3 for a win by like forfeit or whatever. So the guy that took first, I beat him, but then he's tapped out 2 guys in the bracket, whereas I only tapped out 1 guy. So he had the bonus points from that extra submission that put him over me in
the point system.
The point system.
Yeah.
But
So
he also thought like he got second. He's like I don't want this medal. I was like, take the medal. I was like, no. Like I was like, you won him. You got more submissions, man. Like, just take the medal. It's fine.
yeah.
I shouldn't have lost that last match. You know, I get caught in an armbar. Like,
It was a bullshit too.
you gotta pay for the mistake. You know.
Yeah, yeah, but he mopped the
Yeah,
floor.
I heard
didn't
about what happened. I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense to me. And Jay was like, that's how it went.
Yeah. Well, no, he clearly won. He dominated the entire mat, right? Like, and then he went to Nogi, and the guy tried to do the same thing. Jonathan wasn't having it. It was like, you know what I mean? And the guy had him in a mousetrap or the what do you call it? The boogie choke.
Buggy choke?
Yeah, but then the entire time he had him in a buggy choke. I was like, keep holding it. He's getting tired. Because John had his knee on his belly. And the entire time he had his thumb up like this.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
good. Like, he's like this. I'm good.
To the ref.
For like a solid minute and a half.
Because there are times in the buggy choke where you can look like you might go out because you're just relaxing. So I didn't want to look like I was relaxing and like look limp, and the ref stopped the match, right? So I wanted to make sure I'm still conscious. I'm just like, I'm just holding out.
Yeah.
So
and I was screaming, hold it, he's getting tired. And then, you know, lo and behold, the kid got tired, you know, and let it go. And John just mopped the floor with him, you know.
No, their guards, all their guards were really good. It's like I was able to pass all of them except for the one gi match where I got caught in the guard, in full guard, wrapped up on the arm. And then, you know, again, same thing with the gi, you can't like slip out of things. So you have my arm trapped and got a really nice arm bar on me. But the rest of the matches, I was able to, you know, work my passing game, but they were all still like very good at like replacing, getting back in front. So I would hold them for a little bit in half guard or in side control, and then they'd scramble out, and then I would just, you know, keep playing, keeping them on their back, and, you know, end up winning my points for like most of the matches. But they were all really tough on their guard.
How was the second competition?
The fight to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that one was my first. I'd done it before, fight to win. And I'd done a bunch of like super fight matches. There was a promotion back when I was in West Palm that would run a lot of like amateur MMA fights, and they'd have some grappling matches in, so they pull me into some of those. And I've done like those things, which are so different from the tournaments, because in tournaments you can chalk up a lot of the noise to just white noise, because most of it is there's like 8 matches running at the same time. Johnny's getting cheered for over here, so you're just hearing loud noises, but you know it's not directed at you, so you don't like worry about it so much. When you're like the one person, like when you're the one match going on, you know every single cheer or boo or like shout is for your match. Like it's either for you or for the guy that you're going against, right? So that like is very different, like just mentally.
Added pressure.
Yeah, it's way more. So I've done those before. I did fight to win in Miami before. So they came to Tampa a few weeks ago. So I did sign up for that one. Got matched up with this guy, and then we go. He had like a very, very like tight guard game. He was super bendy, which I usually do pretty decent with, like that more like 10th plan D kind of style, like very bendy guard. I usually do pretty well with it, with that pressure. But I ended up getting caught in a triangle on a scramble, and I got too hung up on trying to force it, because there were a couple times where like I thought I almost passed, and then his leg would just be like right back in front of me. And so I think that frustrated me, and I kept trying to like force the issue of like pressuring in instead of taking a second, take a step back, start loose, try to capture like his hips, and then start pressuring in. So I tried to pressure in without control of his hips, and then you walk into a triangle, and then the guy, to nasty triangle, just locked it up and sunk it.
So it wasn't a skill thing. It was more of a mental game that kind of got you on that one.
I mean, I'm not going to take anything away from his guard. His guard was really, really good. Like, it was super hard to pass. Like, I usually have like the guard passing is my like one of my stronger suits, and he was holding me, like keeping me back. But yeah, I think I game planned. If I could have game planned a little better, I think I definitely could have avoided the triangle at the very least and made it a lot better match for sure.
Note to self: next competition, we're watching YouTube videos with these people, because they put them all up there, fucking on YouTube, to go.
Right, and even then, like triangles, like it's weird. Like triangles are like my kryptonite. Like I know that I always get put in them because of the way, just the way that I pressure forward and grapple that way.
So
But
I have some hope against you then, because that's like one of my go-tos. I suck at them, but that's my go-to.
Not happening.
Wait to crush his dreams there, Eddie.
I had hope, and then I didn't.
I don't think you've been on the mat when he's been there, but I have. So no, not happening again.
But yeah, like the triangles, are like the ones that I always get caught in them. I've gotten good at like defending them for the most part. Just because like I've been in them so many times that I can hold on them. Like even at the grappling industries, I got caught in one that I don't thought I was done. I thought I was cooked. But like it just like I got my posture up, so I was able to like just survive like good like 30 seconds in it, and then finally like broke the grip.
That's usually the thing, because what happens, I think, when people hit, because what I've noticed at any level of grappling, like there's 80% of the time is just grappling, and there's only 20% of the time of submissions. And I think what happens when these guys do get that submission, they just put all their effort into it. And as long as you last for 30 seconds to about a minute in that uncomfortable position, they're gonna let go, because they're gonna get muscle fatigued. You know what I mean? Because this usually doesn't happen, and most of the time, if you're inexperienced, like, you know, we're not talking about like Nicky Rods of the world, where they're just been doing this for so long and putting people into these submissions that it's almost like second nature. For these guys, I don't think that's a second nature. You know what I mean? It's like they got it. It's like, oh shit, I got it. Let me put all my strength into it, and then they get muscle fatigue and they just let it go. Right. You know.
And that's good. It's the same thing about like when you squeeze too hard and you bring your forearms up like between matches. It's the same thing with submissions. Like you don't want to have like you never want to squeeze your submissions about 100% full force. You want to have like a 80%. They call it like a 80% squeeze that you can hold for like 2 minutes straight. And it's also a matter of knowing when you're actually in it to squeeze, and knowing when to just like, okay, I'm gonna hold you here and
I'm just gonna move,
find the next thing, right? And that like you only get better at that by like rolling, over squeezing, and seeing that you lost it and saying, oh, okay, now I'm burned out. Now I know that wasn't the bite that I thought it was. So it's just mat time. And same thing with competing. It's handling those nerves so you don't over squeeze on those situations where you really thought you had it, but you really didn't have it. It's just, you gotta compete. You gotta put the time. Yeah, either you win or you learn, right?
Yeah.
But to that, like I learned a lot from that match, and I've been working my passing game a lot differently after that. Like making sure like I'm timing my pressure and like trying to stay away from over under as much. Like just even putting a leg up on there, trying to make sure that I'm a lot smarter about like getting past like the knees, past both knees before I'm putting any pressure in, and then really sink. And then once you're going, like you're going, but not just starting off like off the jump, like just pressuring in and then throwing your head into the fire.
Yeah, and I think that's the most difficult one of that, like the Goldilocks, you know, because you kind of, right. What I've noticed, you have to give up something to be able to do something else. But when you're giving that up, you kind of have to be like in this. You can't be too much this way because it's not going to work, and you can't be too much that way because you're going to get tapped. So you have to be right in the middle. It's almost like this perfect, like a surgeon cut of how you're doing this thing. Like, you know what I mean? To be able to give him something, entice him to come in, but then at the same time go around it. You know, so
especially like I'm not like the smallest like grappler, but I'm not like the largest by any means either. So like little guy pressure passing is especially that, because if you apply too much pressure in one direction against a guy that's got 20-30 pounds on you and is super explosive, once you go the wrong way, they're just gonna launch you over. Yeah. Even though like it wouldn't be as easy against someone like their size, whatever.
Even the white belts,
you have to be super precise with your pressure passing against like heavier grapplers. Like all your positioning has to be perfect, which is why usually I'm pretty solid against like weight classes like in my weight class, because I'm used to holding good posture and good pressure on like heavier guys all the time.
Yeah, and even white belts, man, they'll literally just like one arm push you right off of them. If you're just a tiny bit, your head is just a tiny bit over, you're flying. Yeah, you're just gonna go, you know. And but yeah, so I like rolling with the big dudes. I do, not because they're slower, but because they're just put so much pressure in, and like it puts me in those uncomfortable situations where my knees are all bent, my body doesn't bend that way, and like you gotta have to survive and, you know, create these spaces. The minute you get a little bit of space, you move out and start going for something else, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Same with the pressure passing. Like once you get an angle, like you gotta take it right away, because if you just sit there, they're eventually gonna push you away. They're gonna make space and just you lost it.
Yeah, so that's cool. So are you going for the next? When is the next competition now?
There's one this weekend, but I'm not doing it. So we got some guys competing, so I'll probably go and watch and support, but I'm not competing.
That what
in this
day is
one.
it on?
It's Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, I won't be there
It's
because
like 2 minutes from the gym. It's like super close.
yeah. Oh, what time is it?
I don't know.
You don't know.
The brackets aren't out yet. I think what is it? Today's Tuesday. They'll probably get the brackets on like Thursday, I think.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
times.
So if time permits, I'll come. But other than
There's
that,
kids
I won't
first,
be
so it's
there.
always gonna
Yeah.
they're always gonna be like in the
it'll be
afternoon.
if the afternoon.
They're never
yeah.
gonna be first.
Yeah, but it is what it is. But yeah, so that's the thing. The goal is to go down another 20 pounds. I don't know if I can do it. I mean, we were talking about this the other day, and I don't know if I be able to go to 165. To compete at 165, I think mine is probably gonna be 170.
You would probably destroy at those lower weight classes.
Huh?
You would probably destroy at those
No,
lower
man.
weight classes.
To be honest, man, when you're losing the weight, you don't realize how much power extra 10 pounds adds when you throw in the pressure on. Like extra 10 pounds is a lot. It's a lot of pressure. You don't have those 10 pounds. You're faster, but then you're lighter. When before you could just like throw your chest into it, now you can't. You're throwing your chest over it, and they're just like literally pushing you off because you're just too light. You know what I mean? So, I think the weight classes do work. Especially if you're going at the same skill level. Like if it's not the same skill level, then it's clearly no. But if it's the same skill level, same belt skill level, I think that kind of goes out the window a little bit. I don't know. That's been my experience so far. I don't know.
Why is it they think we see absolute divisions in jiu-jitsu, but then and across these absolute divisions you have a lot of tournaments around the country that like we were saying, regular people do, and in these regular people tournaments you see that the smaller guys can do really well a lot of times in the absolute division, but you don't see that at the highest high level
unless you're Mikey
jiu-jitsu.
Musamichi, right? I guess.
But even then he doesn't compete against like the really big guys.
Well, when he did IBJJF, he did. He would do the absolute, yeah, but not anymore. Not anymore. I think he's just sticking to. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's tough. It's like a non-linear thing. Like the when you get a big guy that's like good or decent, the smaller guy has to be significantly more skilled to overcome that, because like the weight, like it matters, right? So like the more like weight and like strength that they have, and not just like sheer weight, like obviously like athletic strength and athletic size. Like you have to have a lot more skill, like relatively. It's not an actual formula for it, to kind of overcome that, right? So in those tournaments, like in jiu-jitsu, you can see like some people that have like this like same belt rank. If it's like the same belt rank absolute, they can be close to the same like ish skill level, but it could be like purple that are about to get their brown belt, because there's also like there's sandbagging in all these like local tournaments and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But when you're at the highest levels where there is no like skill separation, it's just like the best of the best, then you're getting guys that are all just like top of the game. So then that strength conditioning matters all the more on top of it too, right? So it's at that highest level when everyone's like so skilled, like absolutes, when it's like a lot smaller guy compared to a lot bigger guy, then it's hard to, harder for them to overcome. Not saying it can't happen, like it for sure
right.
can, with the like Gabby Garcia and Mackenzie Dern. That way back IJJF match. It was just I think she lost by like a penalty or whatever, but she just, wins a win in that sense.
Mighty Mouse was competing recently and just not beat up, but won against he bow and arrowed this one
giant
brown belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then also Mighty Mouse went against the B team, and it was like literally they literally mopped the floor.
Yeah.
With them.
Makachev too. Makachev ragdolled him.
Yeah, Makachev ragdolled them. Yeah, so I don't know.
He
man.
is 125.
Yeah, and I think what also happens,
and he walks around
he's a monster. It's just it's just like levels to, and he's in training as like that kind of like level anymore.
But also, you get those skinny dudes and the smaller dudes, and they're much bendier. It's much more difficult to deal with that, especially like legs. Legs get in the way, and it's a nightmare, man. You got those legs in front of you, and they're just bendy. No matter how much pressure you apply, they feel like they're on a beach sipping on a pina colada. You know, it doesn't even bother them. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you take again. I hate to bring up Mike Musamichi, but like there was a 400-pound dude on top of him, and he couldn't pass his legs. You know what I mean? Just because he was able to, like, his legs just bend differently. You know, so that plays a role as well. Now, am I saying that you need to go and do yoga? Probably will help, but if that's not your game, then just like you gotta concentrate on what your game is.
It's pretty hard to just like make that your game because you really like, just sheer will want it to be your game.
Yeah,
it's pretty hard to just like force you like your game into that mold. Everyone's coming in with like some sort of like body type and just mentality of how they grapple. Like my wrestling heavily influenced my jiu-jitsu, my grappling. That's why I pressure pass and like to be on top. Like this one roll, the guy was like, "Well, I feel like you're a leg locker." I'm like, I hate. It's like I'm absolutely not a leg locker at all.
No, I don't like leg locks. Number one,
what is this? Craig Jones.
What I don't like leg locks is I don't like doing them, and I don't like when people kind of do it on me. Just because, like, I get it. Tomorrow everybody's got to go to work, and this is just a hobby for most people, and I don't want them to get hurt. Like, I don't want to do something to snap their foot or hurt them in any way. That's why I don't. Yeah. You know.
Especially when you're just training the gym.
I think with me is more like, you know, me being able to defend the leg locks is more important for me than like being able to actually do leg locks. I don't want to hurt people. You know what I mean? Just that's the bottom line.
Unless it's me. The moment I grab one of his legs, he's gonna fucking heel hook me. So.
Bro, your half guard and quarter guard are almost like an ankle lock.
But that's it. Well, I'm not hurting you. You know, I'm just vice gripping on.
Have you ever had Aussie like do a lockdown? Oh my god,
geez, that sounds miserable.
It's literally like, so he does it to try and like electric chair you or whatever, and just in the setup of him trying to get the electric chair after he gets the lockdown, you're just basically calf slicing you. Yeah. It's so bad. And like he's had it before where he's like just getting my leg up to do the electric chair. I'm like, tap, tap, tap. He's like, bro, I'm not even there yet. I'm like, yo, your fucking shin is killing me right now, bro. It's not the electric chair. He's like, no way you tap to that. I'm like, bro, you have no idea what that feels like, okay?
Yeah.
When he puts you in a lockdown, bro, that shit is so bad.
I think that's what it is, because most of my life, I've always worked heavy. So my legs are just naturally like very gristly. I don't ever train my legs. They're just gristly and there's no space. So when I do lock my legs, it just feels like there's a vice grip on them. But in reality, I'm not trying to give you a vice grip. It's just I don't have any space in between my legs. You know what I mean? When I do lock them in that triangle, you know. But yeah, I don't know that you know, the half guard game, I've been playing it a lot, and that I think came when I started jiu-jitsu. I was 225 pounds, right? I was big, and that was the only game that allowed me to breathe, you know, like a normal person, and I wasn't choking. So that's why I kind of kept with that, which is kind of my crutch, right? Because then I open it up for leg locks, you know, when they sit back on a leg, and just now they can do knee bars and leg locks on me, you know. So I've yet to get better at how to avoid those. You know, I haven't really figured these things out, and I need to ask Adam how to go about it a little bit better if I'm going to continue playing the half guard, or just, you know, start moving into a different type of a game and just combining more with the variety to just playing half guard, you know?
Yeah. You got to see the cues. You got to see in their eyes. They start picking at your feet. They start like kind of wrapping around your ankles. They start like getting the feel for it. It's like, oh, I know what you're doing. So and start hiding your foot right away. And then you can use it to kind of come up on top, because when you fall for a leg lock, now you're giving up your top pressure, right? So like you're giving up that, so you can get a pass off of it, or a sweep rather, and then pass off of it. So it's almost like not being scared like to get into it, just like getting comfortable with getting out of it.
Yeah.
Which it's hard. Like really good leg lockers, it's hard because they're just so, it's such a different game of grips, and there's so many intricacies to it, but I think as long as you get like some core concepts down, like you can kind of figure your way out through most of them.
Yeah.
Except like if you are like really like both your legs like laced up and they're like wrapped around you, then you're done.
Yeah, you're done. You're done.
Well, I mean, everywhere has that spot where like you're done. Like if you're on someone's back, you get their arm trapped and it's 2-on-1. Like you should be done.
Yeah. Like Nicky Rod had this weekend, where he had one arm trapped by Hugo when he took his back.
But I don't think Hugo went for that arm. I think it just happened during the scramble.
when during the scramble, he kind of almost looked like he was going for an armbar
Mm-hmm.
when he turtled up during the scramble. And then I guess when he sat back down for the back, that leg just kind of grazed right over the shoulder
Yeah.
and trapped that arm
Yeah,
right as
Nugo
he
just
fell
took
into
the
the back
opportunity there. Yeah.
and choked him.
Yeah. I don't know. So lately I've been trying to play more of a like a shed game where I'll like literally lay down and give him my back. Like, all right, take my back. You know, let's start from there. Because what I've noticed, there's a lot of white belts and they're all thinking I'm trying to trick them in somehow, but I'm not really trying to trick them. I'm just giving you a shit position to get out of it. It's just I know a little bit more than they do, so I'm able to get out of it. So they think I'm tricking them because every time I get out of those positions, I'm not really tricking you. It's just the way it is. Like
You're just bad at holding it.
yeah, you're just bad at holding it. You know what I mean? I kind of know which ways you're gonna go, what are you gonna take, what are you gonna go for. So,
Jay's like, I'm not tricking you, but I know exactly what you're going to do.
well, no, it's not that exactly what you're going to do. There's only so many things a white belt can do. What are they gonna go for? An armbar? They're gonna try to mount you. They're gonna what? Try to take your back, right? Like the three basic things that they're gonna try to do if you give them your back, right? Especially if you're laying on your side. So you just kind of counter that, you know what I mean? And I think what happens, they just get really mad, and then they stay away. Now at first they would attack. Now they're not even approaching that. So I came up with a new way. I just lay down like a cross now on the mat today, and I was like,
Oh,
all right,
you're
go.
doing it like Corey now.
Yeah, like I'm just doing that. Just go for that now. You know what I mean? Like I got to come up with more ways. But then
I feel like that's even worse. You're like doing it now to the extreme.
No.
You know?
well, I have to put myself in those.
disrespect.
Yeah.
No, I have to put myself in those shitty positions if I want to compete. Like I have to put myself in those shitty positions
Yeah.
in order to be able to get as much practice as I can being in those shitty positions to get out. When somebody, God forbid, puts me in that position, now I kind of like I'm used to the shit, right? Because most people, I don't think they play that game.
Right.
There's only very few that will do that. But you ever try rolling with Chris, man? It's a fucking nightmare. Chris is heavy. He's strong. And a lot of times I'll tell him, put your weight on me. You know what I mean? Like all of it. And it's fucking difficult, man. You got to take every single fucking little opportunity, little hole just to get out of it and then get back into it. You know what I mean? And I don't like to get on top on big guys because big guys are usually like not very good and very clumsy when it comes down to coming back up. So I don't like.
We're slow.
Yeah, and there's a lot of weight to move around. You know what I mean?
It's frustrating as a big dude when you're rolling and you get towards like the end of the rolls and you're getting tired and it's like during a scramble you see the opening but it's like literally like physically not in you to move like that and within that time period. And so it's like, fuck, I know I was supposed to like come up on my knees here or whatever it was, like dogfight position kind of stuff or whatever. But we're slow, bro.
Yeah,
tired.
That's why I don't like to reverse it on them. And then now I'm on top. Okay, now I'm on top. I can kind of control you here. But
I
what's
feel
the
like
point? It's not interesting.
That's
It's not fun.
something as a big dude you have to work on.
I'd never pick bottom on a small guy. I never pick bottom. I work bottom now, like just to work that game. But my bottom game, like I'm hardly ever finishing things from bottom. My bottom game is to get on top.
Yeah.
Wrestle up and get on top.
Well, I've been kind of proud of myself.
I've been playing more of it, but
I've been proud of myself, man. I've been hitting triangles on fucking white belts.
in triangles.
Yeah, bro, even
I feel like
triangles.
on like the skinny.
I mean,
I
my
was about to say a chick.
I connect
Skinny ones.
I connect my leg on my like lower shin. It's not even the highest shin.
Yeah.
It's just lower shin, like almost my ankle. But I'm able to squeeze enough where they're like, all right, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like they're tapping out. But I would never try that on like a blue belt or anything like that. It just wouldn't work. You know what I mean? Like they would just.
I feel like it's almost a sense of perceived danger. It's like he's got me locked and I can't move.
Yeah, I
He's
think
about
they're
to
more like
choke
panic
me.
quit. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Than anything. I think after like a couple of years you become comfortable even with like a knee on belly. You become comfortable with that like feeling. And what I noticed today, Adam was going over knee on belly, and I wasn't like flexing my abs that much. I was flexing them enough where it doesn't feel too bad, but I can still breathe versus like me just going and not even breathing.
Tensing
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. I think with time, it just your game starts slowly like develop more. I think what happens is with years, you become more comfortable with shitty positions. When you become more comfortable with shitty positions, that's when your game starts opening up.
Because you've been there, and,
Yeah.
and you've probably gone through it enough times that you've actually been there and got out, and then gotten success after it. Because if you
Confidence.
I wouldn't say it's like just being in it, because if you're just in there, and you get smashed and get smashed and just get smashed and like never get anything good out of it, then it's like it's gonna be like you get caught there. It's PTSD. But once you get more experience, like getting out of it and like starting to come up on top, and then you get a sub counter out off of it, you're like, oh, okay, like I can survive here. I know I'm okay.
That's the experience I went through, like going to the gym before it was opening and doing all that stuff. Because it was I'd show up and there'd be me and 3 black belts and Jay. So I kind of had the experience of like the majority of times I was going to roll, it was 100% defense the whole time.
Like honestly, you're probably one of the most lucky people because usually white belts don't ever get that experience. You know what I mean? They have like 3 fucking black belts going at it with you. You know what I mean? For them, it's a child's play, right?
It was a privilege because I feel like now, I mean, I haven't trained since October, right? But before, when I was training almost every day, I felt pretty confident in any shitty position against someone that was like blue belt and under. Like it wasn't like I didn't feel that much threatened just because I was in those positions so many times with black belts. And yes, they were submitting me every time, but you learn through that. 100%. You learn through every time those guys submit you. So that definitely developed my defensive game like way past what I should have had in the time period that I did train.
Yeah, so what do you think is the best when it comes to jiu-jitsu? Is it better to go with your defensive game first or with your offensive game first?
Defensive.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna be there more and you're gonna use it more. Whereas if you only learn offense and have no defense when you start out, and this is assuming that like you have like no prior like wrestling or judo or grappling experience. If you're like totally fresh, like no jiu-jitsu experience at all, and you can't get out of bottom side control or like survive,
what good is your offense?
You're never gonna get a chance to use your offense, right? Like you're gonna get taken down, you're gonna get passed, you're gonna get some like controlled. So you gotta learn like where you're gonna be first, and then you can learn like some offense, like some moves that you can start applying as you get better and start being able to escape and start. The new guys come in and you get to be the one that passes them, and then you can start applying some of your other techniques and stuff. So yeah, defense for sure is like the most. Like fresh slate, like defense for sure is the most important thing.
Because now lately been going more into like arm bars and things like that, where require you removing pressure. Like, you know, you got a Kimura and Americana and straight arm locks, whatever. Those are easy because you got the pressure going and you just locking it, right? But with arm bars is a little bit different because you got to remove the pressure. And I've been doing more of these arm bars, and I keep going for as many as I possibly can, just because I want to get that going as well, to be able to get there from any position. I had some success with it, but I'm the most impatient person you'll ever meet in your life. But jiu-jitsu has humbled me, where it's like looking back to where was I and where I am right now. It's like a fucking night and day. It's just like, first 6 months versus now is like what I knew first 6 months, and I thought I was doing okay. Nah, it's not even like the 10% of it,
Right.
So, anyway, I think we're at an hour and a half right now.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up for today.
Pretty cool to call. Again, guys, thanks for joining in a chat. We saw some of you text. Thanks, John, for coming in.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming.
I know it's tough to manage the schedules and whatnot. I want to do it again because I feel like there's so much more to talk about. We usually like to bring the guests back several times over and over again.
For sure.
Yeah, so we can coordinate that and have you come back and go maybe more into like work, and what would you suggest somebody, like if they're just starting, they just finished high school, like how should they approach life, because it's a different perspective. Like I've given my perspective, the guy's given theirs, somebody else has given theirs, and it'd be cool to find out from somebody that's a software engineer, right, at this point, because from what it seems that the industry is moving towards that. So I think it'd be good to have that conversation, you know what I mean, because I don't think our educational system really helps young people at all,
Right, yeah.
But anyway, guys, last words about our sponsors, UFC Gym Largo and St. Petersburg and Vitality. And Eddie, take it away.
Thank you guys for coming. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you guys.
Peace. Thanks, bro.